Money talks. Mine always says goodbye. Okay, that's not that good. But, AC/DC has a song called Money Talks, and we talk about it, so I figured I'd put it in here, and never mind.
Grab a jam, I swear, this is down. It's my podcast. This guy's insane. Rock your brain. It's just a sound. A Steve here
Smack 'em a gob, it's part 2 of the AC/DC Brian Johnson discography. And once again, I have Will and Edwin. What's up, guys?
What's up, man?
Yo.
Ready to do this?
Oh, yeah.
Totally ready. Been cranking a lot of later AC/DC on vinyl, drinking some booze. Want to get into it.
Right on. So last episode, we did the 80s. And on this episode, we're going to do the rest because it's almost just as many albums as the 80s was released after the 80s.
Yep.
And which is going to be like the same amount of conversation. So we're going to start with 1990, which is their comeback album as far as popularity goes, The Razor's Edge. Edwin, what do you think of this album?
Okay, The Razor's Edge. This was my first new AC/DC album. Once I got into the band, if you recall from the last episode, I got into them in late 88, early 89. So this was the first new album. So I was very excited. At the time, I was in junior high. So even then, I knew it wasn't as good as some of the other albums, but I did like it, and I loved Thunderstruck. That was an exciting, first new AC/DC song to hear. It was like an anthem, and that was very exciting. But I would say within just a few years, the album dropped in my estimation. And I have to say, this is my least favorite AC/DC album.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so this is it. In fact, this is the only AC/DC album that actually has a few songs I don't like. That's the thing. For the most part, I think they're fairly consistent. There is some albums that I think are just kind of average. And one of them we'll get to where I think it's just kind of a lot of average songs, but there's nothing I hate on it. But there are a couple songs I really that bother me. I hate Let's Make It. That song annoys me. I don't like Mistress for Christmas. Rock Your Heart Out. Oh, I think that song sucks.
I do too.
Yeah, and I think it's Brian Johnson's worst vocals. And I love Brian Johnson. But this is I could tell that all that screaming he was doing in the 80s, it's he just sounds spent on this album. And I hate Bruce Fairbairn. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Fairbairn.
Yeah, I hate his production. It's too streamlined. It's too slick. I also am not a fan of Chris Slade's drumming. I think he sounds like a drum machine. It's just, I don't think he has any. He might be a nice guy, nothing against him personally, but it just sounds very robotic to me. It's a little too fast, I think, for AC/DC. It's a little too mechanical sounding. Doesn't have doesn't have a groove. Even Simon didn't have Phil's groove, but Simon had more groove than Chris Slade, in my opinion. So, and over the years, these flaws just became more and more apparent. And so it was my first tour, and it was my second tour I ever went to, and it was my first AC/DC tour. So, I do have some fond memories of it. And there are a handful of songs I like Thunderstruck. Unlike you, I don't want to reveal what you think about it. But anyway.
Oh, it sucks! Oh,
I don't hate Thunderstruck like you, Ralph. But it is totally burned out for me. I don't ever need to hear that song again. But I like Are You Ready? I love Fire Guns. That's my favorite song on the album. Fire Guns is a good track. And I like Got You by the Balls. So, and that's about it. Everything else is kind of a wash for me. So, and Money Talks, I hear it's a nice little pop rock song. It's catchy, but it doesn't.
Oh God!
But it doesn't do much for me. That's the thing. I get why people like it. It's melodic and catchy, but it's not my kind of AC/DC. It's not for me.
Well,
yeah. So overall, if this is easily my least favorite AC/DC album.
Right on. What do you think, Will?
Oh man, I think this album sucks, dude. I was so disappointed when it came out. Where do I begin? Okay, Thunderstruck. A song has such potential. When if I first heard it, I was like, "Oh my god, the song's gonna rip," and it never gets to that point. It's like a never-ending intro. The song never gets to the next level. It's always climbing and climbing and never getting to the peak. And it's just like there's no climax to that song, and I just don't dig it. I think Money Talks is maybe the worst AC/DC song of all time. I just hate the opening intro. It's just so wimpy, and for a band that's really proud of having balls, they completely lack balls on that tune. I agree, Chris Slade was a terrible fit for AC/DC. And I also was annoying that they were really featuring him a lot in the videos. They were kind of like showcasing him. Like, hey, look at this wild man on the drums, this bald wild guy who makes crazy faces at the camera. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, this is not your band, man. Like, don't try to turn it into your fucking band.
I remember when I first saw Thunderstruck, I remember even as a kid, I remember thinking, why are they showing this new bald drummer so much?
Yeah, totally. And he had like the floor toms mounted up on the side like Vinny Appice has. And that's great for Vinny Appice and Dio. That works. But, I mean, with AC/DC, there's no need for that. It's just ridiculous, you know? So I have to say, like, between Blow Up Your Video and this album, it's the worst era of AC/DC and my least favorite era. And one more thing, I actually have a soft spot for Mistress for Christmas. I know it's a stupid-ass song. But it's the most unique song on the album. And I don't know. I have a soft spot for it. And you guys remember the T-shirt for Mistress for Christmas?
Yeah, I owned that T-shirt. It is a cool T-shirt. I'll say this for Mistress for Christmas. It bothers me on an album, but if it was just like a separate like seasonal single, like something on one of those, remember they used to do those Christmas compilations? What were they called? Like Very Special Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was like on something like that Run DMC Christmas song, like if it was just a separate AC/DC does a Christmas song, I probably wouldn't mind it so much. It's just that you don't want to hear a fucking AC/DC Christmas song in the middle of a AC/DC album, especially if it's not Christmas time.
I think those Christmas compilations were like for the March of Dimes or something. So maybe they didn't want to put a song about boning a mistress on Christmas Eve.
that would make it cooler.
But the T-shirt was awesome. I remember I really wanted to get it, but I knew my mom wouldn't approve. So unfortunately, I never got
it. It was a cool T-shirt.
And before we continue, I want to correct two things I said in the last show. So AC/DC never played Night Prowler live. I don't know. I for some reason I was told they played it on the Fly on the Wall tour. So it never happened. But I'm going to continue to keep on believing it did because I think it's so cool. And another thing, when we were talking about Blow Up Your Video, and I said that This Means War was the last fast AC/DC song. One of you guys mentioned a song on a later album.
Fire Your Guns.
What song?
Fire Your Guns. I mentioned that.
Is that a fast song? I can't even remember.
Yeah,
kind of fast.
Well, it's kind of fast. I mean, not as fast as this Means War, but it's faster than anything after it. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking I'm missing a song from a later album.
Definitely not, because I just listened to the last, not counting the latest album, I listened to the 4 previous today, all throughout the day. So there's no fast songs on those albums, man.
No, there's some songs that sound relative fast compared to the other songs, but if you compare them to actual fast songs, they're not fast.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I don't know if I like Razor's Edge less than Blow Up Your Video. I think it's a tie for the 2 worst AC/DC albums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would. I like Blow Up Your Video way more than this, even though it is chock full of filler. I'll admit it. But man, I only like Fire Your Guns off this album. That's the only song. Now I did, like you, Will. I was listening to some of these later AC/DC albums, and I haven't listened to Razor's Edge in fucking decades.
Totally.
So I put it on and I listened to the whole thing, and I gotta be honest. I mean, I still don't think it's a great song, but I thought, okay, better than what I remembered, but I still don't say it's good. But if I was to pick my second favorite on this album, it'd be the title track. I thought it was a little unique and different.
That's a cool song.
And it
I
was
agree. That's a cool song.
yeah, one was like, I mean, I don't think it's fucking awesome or anything, but I go, all right, I don't remember this song being as good as this. But yeah, dude, and yeah, you bring up Money Talks, man. Did fucking MTV love that fucking video or what?
Oh yeah.
My God.
Guys, you might be angry at me over this, but that video was shot at the show I was at.
Okay.
It was at the Philadelphia Spectrum. They shot the Money Talks video at that show. So I'm
does that
technically
mean
in
they
that
had
video.
to play it? They had to play it numerous times? Or
AC/DC. They know how to play songs. They just
well,
but yeah, they dropped all the money.
I am angry because you should have beat that cameraman unconscious so that video would have never been released.
It's funny, at the time they said there was like the word around while everyone was in line is, oh, they're going to shoot a video here. They're going to shoot a video here. And I thought, oh, it's going to be that Are You Ready song. That's really catchy. And that's what I thought it was going to be. And then it was Money Talks. So that didn't happen. I never understood why the Are You Ready video took place in a prison. I was like, I don't feel that video should have took place in a prison, but whatever. It was kind of like, I think they kind of wasted a really catchy song. They should have had a video.
Especially when you already have a video for Jailbreak.
Yeah, it was it was a weird choice. I was like, why the fuck is this in a jail cell? Is that? I don't know.
I don't think I ever saw that video, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I've seen it. They didn't show it much. They'd strap a guy down and they'd carve AC/DC on the back of his head.
I remember that.
Yeah. But yeah, dude. But every time Money Talks would start, because it was on every Headbangers Ball, I'm like, oh fuck, man!
Dude, that
Stop
intro,
with this goddamn
the intro, it's just the worst, man.
Fucking garbage. Unlike, I love the next one, man. Ball Breaker. Yeah. This one really threw me for a loop because, I mean, I know you guys were Fly on the Wall fans. I wasn't, and Blow Up Your Video was mediocre. Razor's Edge was just like the worst. I was like, dude, this band lost its edge. Then I heard this album, and I was already petrified because Rick Rubin produced it, and I was like, I wasn't a fan of what Rick Rubin was doing after the Trouble 1990 album. Like everything I heard after that, I wasn't really into. And I was like, oh man, this is gonna suck. Man, I think this album is grossly underrated. It came out during the grunge era, right? Am I right?
Yeah, right in the middle of it, kind of. 95,
95. Yeah, but man, it's awesome, and this was like right at the cusp of MTV stopping playing videos or good or rock videos, so didn't really get that much exposure. I did see the tour, but AC/DC, man, even Razor's Edge tour ruled. Doesn't matter how crappy they are. It doesn't matter how crappy their albums are. They would fill up a house. And I love it. I love Hard as Rock. My favorite on here has to be Boogeyman and Roll, man. Those two songs rule, man. But I love it all. I mean, some songs are like whatever, but I really was impressed. I was taken aback going, wow, this is actually a really good AC/DC album. This is like, for me, personally, I think it's their best since Flick of the Switch. I really liked it. What do you think, Will?
I completely agree, man. I love the production. It's really dry, and it's completely opposite of how Razor's Edge sounded. It doesn't have that saturated 80s, or even though the Razor's Edge was 89 or 90. Was that 90 or what year was that?
90. It came out 90.
But it still had that 80s sound to it, and Ball Breaker, it was really dry and just a nasty sound. I love the fucking Caesar song. I like Whiskey on the Rocks. I was way into this album, dude. I was a born again AC/DC fan when it came out, and I played it every day, like that summer or whenever it came out. Like for 3 months after, I was listening to that album almost every day, and it was fun to be an AC/DC fan again. And I think, it's their best album since For Those About to Rock, I would say.
Wow, even more than Flick of the Switch.
Yeah, and I think it's better than the new album. I think but we'll get to that later. But I really love Ball Breaker. I was stoked on it.
Right on. How about you, Edwin?
I love this album, and I've always loved it. My love has only grown though over the years, and actually, I've changed my opinion about a few albums since even back when I made that discography video like last year. Ballbreaker, I love even more now. I'd say it's my. I wouldn't say it's my favorite since For Those About to Rock, but it's my second favorite after For Those About to Rock.
I know
So
your favorite. We'll
yeah,
get to that. I know it
that
because I saw your discography on YouTube, and
yeah
it was really
that
cool. Edward Cannistraci, check out his YouTube channel.
that hasn't changed the feeling about that album, but a few of the
Right.
others have. This is one where I realized Ballbreaker. I love it even more. I love Flick and Fly, and don't get me wrong, like you can't like yeah, Brian singing still like Pete Bryan on Flick, but song by song, I don't know Ballbreaker. There's something about it. It has that. The songs aren't as good as they are in Powerage, but it has that Powerage vibe. You know, it's like dark and bluesy, and it might not be fast and heavy, but it's tough sounding. You know, it's like mean and tough sounding. I think it's the Young Brothers, like without Brian or Bond, it's their best lyrics. The lyrics are all kind of dirty and mean.
The title track is awesome too, man. The title track.
Yeah.
Title tracks.
Good
Yeah,
way
now
to
that's
end
a
the
heavy
album,
song.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Great way to end
heavy
the album.
song.
I think
Heavy
Brian
song.
sounds awesome on that song.
Well,
Yeah.
I love the guitar tones. You know, like you were saying, Will, very dry, raw. It's probably like their most underground sounding album since Let There Be Rock. It's very raw sounding, and it has a vibe. All the songs flow together really well. Like even some songs aren't like the best songs on the album, still like fit the vibe. You know, and I just love the vibe. It has atmosphere in the same way like you and I were saying, like Will, that Fly on the Wall has like an atmosphere to it.
Right.
This has an atmosphere too. It's like Fly on the Wall is like the bar fight early in the evening, and Ballbreaker is like coming home late at night, like after that, like a couple hours later. You know, it's like dark, grungy, after hours AC/DC, and I love it. Whiskey on the Rocks, great. Ballbreaker's great. Burning Alive, that's a great song. Hail Caesar. I love the whole album. I love the vibe, and it's my fourth. It's my fourth favorite with Brian Johnson. I think it's a great album.
You know what song kind of disappointed me? Only because of the lyrics. The song "Cover You in Oil." When I read that song title, I thought it was about burning a person alive. I was like, "Fuck yeah, man! They're gonna get vicious with the lyrics here." And then, instead, it was your typical AC/DC sex lyrics. You know?
It's just so dirty. You ever see the video for that? I can't believe that was even a single.
Whoa! I didn't know there was a video for that song. No.
Yeah, it's straight out Spinal Tap. It's like Smell the Glove type shit. It's hilarious.
Are they trying to be hilarious, or are they?
Yeah, I think there's a little tongue in cheek to it.
Okay.
I think at the time, I read some interviews. Like Malcolm was saying, like, because this was like during Clinton was president. It's funny because this just not. I don't want to get political here, but they said that they were being intentionally kind of politically correct because a lot of the grunge artists and that era was kind of the beginning of that, like the beginning of political correctness.
Sure.
So they kind of went out of their way to be a little dirtier and a little nastier than they had been for a while with that album, and like Cover Me with Oil is like one of those examples. Like they really were going out of their way to like be as dirty as possible, and that's another thing I love about the album because it was back to like the Bon Scott era where they're getting really filthy again.
You know, they should have went all the way. You know, and covered the chick in oil, had sex with her, and then lit her on fire.
Well, there's Burning Alive that comes later. It's a concept album.
That should have been the video.
You're a dark guy, Will.
Will, why don't we go all the way to 2000 with Stiff Upper Lip? What do you think of this one?
Oh man, it's not a bad album, but I think it's really boring, man. I remember thinking that when it came out, I was a little disappointed, being the follow up to Ballbreaker, even though 5 years had passed between two albums, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little laid back and really heavy on the blues tip, more than normal. And I listened to it again yesterday actually, and I still felt the same, that it's kind of a boring album for me. Not too many standout tracks, but not bad either though. Like it's not bad like Razor's Edge or like, oh my God. I enjoyed listening to it, but it just nothing really stood out and grabbed me so much.
Right. Edwin?
Yeah, I felt exactly like Will when I first heard this album, but it has been a grower for me. I talked to you once about this, Ralph, like a year or so ago. I really do love this album. I understand it doesn't immediately hit you like Ball Breaker and some of their earlier stuff. I mean, all their earlier stuff, but it creeped in me. I mean, I do love the blues a lot, so it's a very pure album. It's an album you can kind of respect because you could tell like they just kind of made it for themselves. And it's just a straight up like boogie woogie bluesy hard rock album. And the song, like Angus is doing a lot of really cool stuff on it. There's a lot of really cool guitar licks. I like George Young's production on it. The guitar tone's great. Like if you listen to the song like Meltdown, like that guitar tone sounds like straight up like 70s AC/DC. It's a really
Meltdown is probably my favorite song on the album.
I love that tone, and Brian's going, get it hot in a chorus, and I really love that. I love Satellite Blues. It's a really catchy song. Kind of reminds me of Powerage a little bit. That song, and I like. It's a weird song, but it's really grown on me a lot. Is "Come and Get It," which has really probably the only song that has kind of dirty lyrics. The first line of the song is "Picking up the sleaze in my car," which I really love that line. I think that's a great lyric. So I like it. It's a grower. It's an album that's I've really grown. It doesn't have that same dark edge that Ball Breaker does. It's not as fun and loud and splashy as like Fly on the Wall. It's not as, but I do really love this album. It's when you just want to kind of hear just a straight. It's kind of like their ZZ Top album. It's just like a ZZ Top bluesy rock album. And I do really love it. I love the production. And I get why it's not like, doesn't really blow people away. But if you're into if you just want to hear Malcolm and Angus play some cool bluesy rock, then it kind of delivers. That's how I feel.
I will say, whoever gave the green light to call the album "Stiff Upper Lip" should have gotten fucking fired.
It's it doesn't sound like an album title. I mean, I love the song. I think it's a great song, but it doesn't sound like that should be the album title. I agree. One thing that we didn't mention with this and Ball Breaker is Phil Rudd's return.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And that does make a difference. Like you hear instantly on Ball Breaker, like there's a groove now. It's like he's back in the band, and they just got that groove in a way that they hadn't had since he was in the band.
Totally, it was a pleasure seeing him live. That was the first time I ever got to see Phil Rudd in the flesh. Like all the times I saw AC/DC in the '80s, it was Simon Wright. So that was really exciting to see Phil Rudd behind the kit. And I think they opened up the Back in Black on that tour, and he came out from like the riser, like the drum set rolled out from the riser, and it was so awesome to see Phil Rudd up there.
Yeah, that was my second time because I saw For Those About to Rock, but Flick of the Switch, which he played on, he didn't do that tour. It was Simon Wright on that tour. But Stiff Upper Lip, I'm a little indifferent on. I kind of mirror what Will said too. It's like I don't really hate it, but nothing really stood out to me. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but I like Safe in New York City. I think that song is kind of like the best song on here. It's the only one that I can kind of get catchy. I did kind of like House of Jazz. There's nothing I really dislike on here. It's a good album. It's a good listen, but it's not a standout. I don't know if y'all... And what Will was saying, Stiff Upper Lip is a terrible name for the album. Yeah. I think the album should have been... I think a better title for this album was Set That Girl That's Covered on Oil on Fire. How cool would that title be? That would be an awesome title for it. With the girl on fire covered.
Didn't Gene Simmons already write that song, "Burn Bitch Burn"?
Yeah. Call the album. Put My Log in Your Fireplace.
There you go.
All right, I'll take the next one, which is a Walmart exclusive from 2008, Black Ice. I went out and bought this at Walmart, and it's really long. I mean, this may be the longest AC/DC album.
15 songs, right?
Yeah, man, 15 songs, and I revisited it the other day, and look, I mean, I like it more than Stiff Upper Lip, but at the same time, there's songs on here that I kind of get, like, I don't know, I daydream and I don't really like listen to the song, because it's so long.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and what I love on this album is what everybody says, and I swear to you guys, I've never sucked a cock, but I love Anything Goes. I love that song. It's so commercial, though. It's so different than AC/DC, but I really dig it. I think it's catchy, and it's just a fun fucking song. And I liked Big Jack, and there was a couple on here I didn't mind. But yeah, I wouldn't say it sucks. But what do you think, Will?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you pretty much 100%. It's not a bad album, but it's not a good album either. It's just chock full of filler, man. And Big Jack is probably my favorite song on the album, and they played that on live. I was stoked they played that on that tour. And wait, Rock and Roll Train, that's on this album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that song's okay too. But yeah, it's just way too long. I think they would have been better off. I mean, who am I to say? This album sold millions, whatever. But for me, I would have liked it if they had just focused on like maybe 10 songs or even 9 songs and made a top-notch album from beginning to end instead of throwing all these 3.5-minute fillers all throughout the album. I think that was probably my favorite tour, though. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, as far as stage show, that stage show was fantastic with the giant train.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive, man. That was a really, really good show. And like you said, no matter what album they're touring for, it's always going to be a guaranteed great show. So
Yeah, because they're not going to bombard you like Iron Maiden with a bunch of songs off the new album,
Totally. Unless it's the Razor's Edge tour. They played a lot of songs off Razor's Edge.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, so I like it more than Stiff Upper Lip, but just by a little bit, just by a little bit. Both those albums I'm kind of like neither here nor there on.
Right on. Edwin.
Yeah, I definitely like Stiff Upper Lip better in this album. I guess kind of what you were saying, both of you said about Stiff Upper Lip is how I feel about this album, but also some of the other things you're saying. Obviously, way too many songs and way too much. I think pretty much this is an album entirely a filler for the most part, save for a couple songs. There's nothing bad on it. That's where it's different. It's funny because Razor's Edge has about 3 or 4 songs that I like better than anything on this album, but there's nothing I dislike on this album like on Razor's Edge. So that's why, and this production's much better than Razor's Edge, and Brian sounds much better than on Razor's Edge, and you got Phil instead of what's his face, Chris Slade. So because of that, I give this an edge on the Razor's Edge. But I would say this is my second least favorite AC/DC album. I don't hate it, so that says a lot for the band that my second least favorite album is an album that I don't hate. But I almost never go back to this album. I did listen to it again this week because we were doing this. But it would be better if it was just like 10 songs. Yeah, and you cut off some of the filler. It's funny because my favorite song on it is a track that I think gets kind of lost in it. It's called Smash and Grab, which...
Oh, no, really?
I like that song. Yeah, I tell you, I feel it gets a bad... I think this song, if it was a tighter 10-song album and didn't have so many mid-tempo songs, would sound better. What I like is I like Angus's guitar work, and I like the nine. It's just got like a kind of cool groove to it. I like that song for whatever reason. But
that's funny, man. I listened to this album earlier today, and I was doing stuff around the house, and when that song came on, I remember saying out loud, I was like, man, this song sucks.
I like it. It's a Ballbreaker song. It's kind of just tough and mean sounding. That's why I think I like it. But it's totally lost, like, because so many songs, too, are mid-tempo on this album, too. So you got like 15 minutes of, 15 songs. It's like an hour worth of mid-tempo songs. I remember when after Rock and Roll Train, like the second song, which wasn't a bad song, it's like got Fire in the title. What that song? I forget.
Fire in the Sky?
Fire in the Sky. Like, it's a cool song, but it just doesn't sound like it should be a second song. And it's slow. It's even slower than the first song. It's like, oh, shit. And I just remember and I love Phil Rudd, but I think his most uninspired drumming in the band that he's ever done. It's just like by the time you get to like the 20th or 30th track on this album, you're just like, okay, we get it. You guys played a mid-tempo rock and roll. It's a real chore to listen to, and that's the thing. It's got a good production, and I'm not a fan. I get like anything goes. It's better than Money Talks, but to me, it's just like one notch above. It's kind of a corny song. I don't really like it. It's all right. Like I don't hate it, but it's not really what I want to hear AC/DC doing. So I don't really. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't really. Big Jack's all right, but nothing's like almost every song on this every song, even the best song on this album, would be filler on another better album. So this is definitely my second least favorite.
Yeah, I want to retract my statement when I said I like this better than Stiff Upper Lip. I definitely like Stiff Upper Lip better than Black Ice as well. Because like you said, it's just too many fillers on this album.
Yeah, at least Stiff Upper Lip gets out of Dodge when it needs to.
Right.
How about Edwin? How about the next one, Rock or Bust? What do you think?
Rock or Bust is interesting because it's pretty much like they redid Black Ice, but did everything right this time. It's like they trim it down. It's much shorter. It's a little more straight up. The production's good, like on Black Ice. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with the production. And Brian, I felt sounded really good on Black Ice. I just didn't really like the songs. But if anything, the production's even punchier. Brian sounds even better. The songs are all a little punchier. Like, for example, like I said, I wasn't crazy about Anything Goes, but there's a song on this album, Rock the Blues Away.
Yeah, it's pretty much part two.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same song, except for now I like it. It's like now it's just a little more, it's got that great melody that Anything Goes has, but it's not as try hard. It's just a little cooler. It's like a cooler version of that song. And
it's a little less commercial.
Yeah, it's a little less commercial. And in a way, that's kind of like a metaphor for the whole album. Like, I feel like Black Ice is a little, not as much as the Razor's Edge, but it felt a little try hard. It feels a little like the Walmart album. Where this feels like it's a little more just for AC/DC fans. It's a little less try hard. I think the songs are a little catchier for the most part. Rock and Roll Thunder, that's a really catchy song. Overall, I love the title track. Title track's a tough sounding track. I really like that. I remember when Play Ball came out, the first single, I wasn't really crazy about that song. That sounded a little more like a Black Ice song. But then when I heard Rock or Bust, which was like the second single and the album came out, I was like, oh, now that's more like it. And I really like that song. Plus, obviously, this was the first album without Malcolm. And so I guess I was also like just pleasantly surprised that they sounded so much like AC/DC without Malcolm. So because I was very cynical of this idea that AC/DC, how could you do AC/DC without Malcolm? I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know. Like, I don't want Black Ice to be the last album. But on the other hand, you can't really do AC/DC without Malcolm. But as soon as I heard the song Rock or Bust, I thought maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible. And maybe just like Bond, maybe Malcolm would want them to carry on. Maybe he would want his little brother to carry on, And I listened to the album, and initially, I think I overpraised it. Like when it first came out, I was like, oh, this is the best thing they did since Flick of the Switch. And I was so thrilled, and I was very emotional about it because I wasn't expecting it to be good without Malcolm. And it was, and I saw the tour, and it was a great tour. And I still saw it even before Axl came on when it was still Brian. And it was a great tour. But as the years have gone by, it's one of those albums that, you get excited about when it came out, but it has dropped. Now, I would say it's probably my third least favorite AC/DC album, but big difference between this and my bottom two. Like, I do think this is a very good album. So even though it's not one of my favorites, I do really like this album a lot, and I think it's really good. I just think all their other albums besides Black Ice and Razor's Edge are better. But I do really like this album, and I think it's a good album.
All right. Will, what do you think of Rock or Bust?
I dig it, man. This is the only AC/DC album I never heard until today, earlier today. Like when it came out, we Death Angel were touring, and it just kind of went under my radar. I heard Play Ball and thought it was a cool song that didn't blow me away or anything. But yeah, somehow this album just kind of went by the wayside for me, so I never heard it. When I listened to it today, I enjoyed the shit out of it, man. I think it's especially. I think it also because of two mediocre albums in a row. I just lost interest, so I just didn't rush out to hear this album when it came out. But I was digging the shit out of it today when I was doing chores around the house. I was loving it, man. It seems like the guitar work is a little more adventurous on this album, and just a lot more. It seems a lot more thought out. Like the songs have depth to them a lot more than the previous album. And yeah, I really dig it, man. I'm gonna revisit this album again, and I'm gonna pick it up. Actually, it's one of the few ones I don't own on CD or vinyl, so I'm a fan of this album. I like it.
Right on. I felt like Edwin. I felt like, Rocker Bus is the best album since Flick of the Switch. But unlike Edwin, I still feel that way. I love this fucking album. I do have it on vinyl, which is probably expensive as fuck now. The vinyl is like a hologram thing. I love, man. On my old podcast, we reviewed this album, so I did study it for the review, and I was like, man, I played it a bunch of times over, and I was like, God damn, this is really good. I really love Rock the House. That I know Angus. I'm pretty sure Angus does not listen to Frank Zappa, but that is the same goddamn riff as Slime off the Overnight Sensation album of Frank Zappa. The same exact riff.
Huh.
I love Rock the Blues Away. I love Got Me Some Rock and Roll Thunder, which was cool that they played it. I didn't see it with Brian Johnson. I saw it with Axl. And I love the title track, Dogs of War.
That's a great song.
Yeah, this is a solid album. It kind of tapers off a little toward the end, but it's still very listenable. It's enjoyable. And I still feel that it's their best album since Flick of the Switch. It's just, to me, this is an album that I put on. Well, you know what? I didn't even listen to it for this episode because I'm so used to it. But I put this album on at least 2-3 times a year. I'm like, I want to hear Rock or Bust. It's just a great, solid, return to form for me. It's like, dude, this is amazing. I love, love, love Rock or Bust. I think it's a great, great album. All right, goddamn, we're ready at the end.
Unless you want to include the Iron Man 2 soundtrack.
Well, then there's backtracks as well and some live albums.
Right.
But what did the Iron Man didn't have anything new, did it?
Well, it had a Cold Hearted Man on it. I mean,
okay.
For a lot of people, that was an unheard song,
Right.
Yeah, I first heard it on. I think Backtracks might have came out like a year before that. It was close, but yeah, for some people, they'd never heard that before. Backtracks was the first time I heard the song.
Yeah, Backtracks has a lot of rarities on there.
A lot of great shit on that. And I know. Oh, one thing. Let's discuss this because I heard you and Will discuss this on one of the other episodes. Big Gun, which I know.
Oh, yeah.
Will does not like Big Gun.
Yeah, he hates that song.
That's one of their best songs, man. Why do you hate that song?
I think it was the riff that.
That's awesome. I love that.
Oh no, dude. That's like Money Talks territory, man.
Oh, wow.
It's nothing like Money Talk. If Money Talks kicked ass.
I gotta agree with Ralph, man. That man.
Ralph
terrible.
No, Will, I like that.
Everyone likes. I
like that
every
stupid little.
You like that?
Yeah, man.
Oh.
Sorry.
Big Gun's
that was
very
for
beloved. It's weird because they never did it live, but Big Gun's like a very beloved fan. So, like fans love that song. But they never played it live for some reason.
I was surprised when Will told me that he hated that song. I was like, really?
Yeah, I was surprised too.
What is that for? The Last Action Hero? Is that the movie?
Yeah.
I've never even seen that movie because of that song. No,
it's so good you almost don't even realize Chris Slade's playing drums on it.
I guess I have to revisit that song because I remember the video. There was a video for that, right?
Yeah. Well,
and it was a pretty popular song, but I don't know, man. His voice too is shot like at the end when he goes ha ha, like whatever. Sounds like he's hawking a loogie or something, man.
I love that video because Arnold Schwarzenegger turns into Angus and he does a little hop.
Yeah,
shit's hilarious. Little Angus with big ass fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger following him, hopping across the stage.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend you stay away from that movie, Will.
Okay.
That movie sucked. I don't know.
Okay.
What did you think of that movie, Will? Edwin?
This is when I first saw it when I was a teenager, I thought it sucked like everyone. But I rewatched it like 2 years ago, and I don't know, maybe like standards have lowered or something. But like now I found it kind of charming and amusing.
Well, I saw it way back. I haven't seen it since, but I remember the movie was like, what's the term? Is it called the third wall, or something
Yeah,
like that?
the fourth wall. It
The
breaks the
fourth
fourth.
wall.
Yeah, it breaks the fourth wall, so it's very postmodern or meta. So it's like making references to movie. It's like a movie within a movie,
Yeah.
and it's cute. Like the kid kind of sucks, which is a problem. Like he's not that good of a kid actor. He's no Corey Feldman in his prime, but Arnold's still like peak Arnold. Like it's charming T2 kind of Arnold. So he's good in it, and it's a clever script. I didn't mind it. It's kind of corny, but I kind of liked it, and it was kind of like a movie they don't make anymore. So I don't know. I have a better feelings about this movie now than I did when I saw it as a teenager. I thought it was whacked. I thought this is lame, but like a lot of people. But now I think it's all right.
The
I like
pinball
that.
machine. The pinball machine was awesome. I never saw the movie, but I used to play the shit out of the pinball machine whenever I see it at an arcade or in the bar or wherever I see it. It was one of the best mid '90s pinball machines to come out. I loved it.
Yeah, and I had the soundtrack, of course. I had Angry Again.
I have the soundtrack on CD. I like the Alice in Chains song. Which one was that? That was on there.
I forget the name
What
of
the
it.
hell have I or something?
It has that Middle Eastern kind of sound to it.
Yeah, it was a cool song, man.
Yeah.
Who else is on that soundtrack besides
Tesla, Queensryche.
Aerosmith did the Dream On with the orchestration. Remember?
Yeah, it was like a hard rock album. A lot of hard rock bands were on there.
What Queensryche song?
Real World. I don't know if you know that song. It ended up being a B-side on one of their later albums.
That'd be like Empire era, right?
No, it was later.
Okay.
I think it was like maybe either Powerland. Was it Promised Land or the one after that?
Promised Land. Yeah.
It's an orchestral song with Michael Kamen. But it's like a ballad. But I really liked it. I thought it was a nice little song, nice little ballad type song.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I mean, I haven't listened to that soundtrack forever, but I do remember that. I thought the Alice in Chains was a standout track on that album.
Yeah, it was good. That was a good time for soundtrack albums, like the early '90s.
So now we're getting to the very last album, which is Power Up. Which man, I really loved it. Well, you know what? I'll throw this to Will first.
I completely bought into the hype. Like everyone was going berserk when this album came out, and people were saying it's the best thing AC/DC's done in 30 years. And I don't normally buy into that kind of like hype, or like I don't read the critics. I don't care what critics have to say about anything, but except my own music.
Then the critics are right.
but I think it came out at the right time. Everyone's all locked up, and no more shows, and everybody needs something to be excited about and be happy about. And what better than an AC/DC album, a new AC/DC album? Plus, this might be the last time we're all going to get excited about a new AC/DC album. I mean, who knows if they're ever going to make another one? So I bought it, and I got to tell you, when I first listened to it, I was disappointed, only because my expectations were so high because of the way people were gushing over it. Like, I was expecting For Those About to Rock or something, But since then, the album has grown on me immensely. I think it's a great fucking album. And it's definitely the best album since Ball Breaker. I think my favorite song is Kick You When You're Down. But I think every song is top notch, and it's not too long of an album. And the packaging is brilliant. I love this is like one of the few albums I've bought in the past 15 years on CD because I wanted the light box thing, Right. And yeah, it just came out at the right time for the world, and I'm glad it's getting all the success that it's getting, So it grew on me, and I love it. I think it's great.
Nice. Edwin?
Yeah, well, that's great. I love this album. Ralph knows how much I love this album.
Yeah, I know you.
It's the way Ralph feels about Rock or Bust. This is that one for me, I think, because it hasn't changed. Like, I know it's still like 3 months in, but my opinion still is the same. I think this is their best album since For Those About to Rock. I mean, I can get, maybe I'll feel like it's Ballbreaker, the best since Ballbreaker a year from now. I don't know. It's possible. But right now, I'm still in the glow of it, where I do feel it's their best album since For Those About to Rock. I think the quality it has is just all the songs are really catchy. I don't think they've had an album since like For Those About to Rock where I don't think there's any filler. I think every song sounds like it could be a single. Every song is really melodic but punchy. I love the production. It's weird because I don't think it even sounds like the same guy that did Rock or Bust or Black Ice, which did sound similar. The production has a little more atmosphere to it. I love the way Phil's drums are produced on this. Like, they're really loud.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard Phil this loud since Mutt Lange produced him. So that, I love that. I love hearing Phil loud. And the songs are really catchy and poppy, but punchy at the same time and heavy. And that's kind of like a Mutt Lange thing too. It's not quite on that level, but it reminds me more of what Mutt Lange did than any other album post Mutt Lange, in the sense that the songs have like a sonic power to them, but yet are really catchy. And Witch's Spell, plus it like brings the dark, evil AC/DC back, like Evil Walks and and stuff like that. Like you hear in Witch's Spell and Demon Fire. Like, they haven't had songs like this since the early '80s. And
yeah, Demon's Fire is a great song.
Yeah, and like Money Shot like has a COD groove to it, and No Man's Land, that's a nice bluesy track where Phil's, even though everything's mid-tempo, Phil's doing some little interesting stuff here. Like, unlike Black Ice, where it sounds like the same drum beat on every song, he's finding little interesting things to do. Like on No Man's Land, like he's playing like against the beat a little bit. It's kind of interesting, and I just everything. And like some song, like when I did my review rap, I said like Rejection was like one of my least favorite songs. Now it's like one of my favorites. Like, I was like, what the fuck was I saying that was? That's like a little like Inject the Venom. It's not as heavy, but it has that mean groove to it. And it's like the lyrics are really mean and kind of politically incorrect. I love that. And Shot in the Dark, of course, is really catchy, bluesy, kind of have a drink on me kind of vibe. Through the Mist of Time, so different for them. I haven't heard them sound this different since Blow Up Your Video. Like, where this is like total power pop, like a Cheap Trick song. And it's a very moving song. This was like you said, you teared up when you heard For Those About to Rock. I started tearing up when I heard Through the Mist of Time the first time I heard it. There was just something about it, not just because it was obviously kind of seemed like it was a song about Malcolm, but there was something about this older band still doing things different. Like, I wasn't ready for a song that sounded like this by AC/DC. And I'm also a big Cheap Trick fan, so, I don't mind, some power pop. So when I heard it, there's just something about it I found very moving. Like, cool, like they're still going to try new shit, even at their age. So I found it's just something about it. But I also love the song Kick You When You're Down. That's got such a great groove to it.
Yeah.
It's great. I love the backing vocals. They're all really catchy. They're doing shit like I haven't heard and done since like the Bon Scott days, like Powerage, like where the backing vocals come in on like the verses, like What's Next to the Moon and shit. And they're doing that. I remember when I first heard Shot in the Dark, I was like so excited when I heard like the vocals, the gang vocals come in on the verses. I was like, they haven't done this shit since like Powerage. It's a melodic, punchy, soulful album. I love it. I think it's like a later day classic masterpiece. But we'll see how I feel in a year or two from now. But I'm still in the glow of this album. I love it.
Yeah, I love it as well. I still prefer Rock or Bust, but that's not slamming this because if Rock or Bust didn't exist, I'd say this is the best since Ballbreaker. But yeah, my favorite is Through the Mist of Times. It was the first time I listened to this album. That was my favorite. And it still is now. And I did listen to this last week. And the thing I love so much about Through the Mist of Time, yes, it's a tribute to Malcolm. And it's kind of got this like you said, power pop vibe, but it's not one of these sappy, like, oh, we lost Malcolm. It's kind of like celebrating his life in with the vibe of this song. It's like a feel good song about Malcolm, because Malcolm did bring a lot of joy to all of us. And yeah, dude, I remember watching your review and I was like, damn, dude, Rejection is like my second favorite off this album. I love Rejection. I love Money Shot.
Yeah.
I love this whole album, Demon Fire, which is spelled "kick you when you're down." It's awesome. Shot in the Dark. It's all good. This whole album is really good. But there's just something about Rock or Bust, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm being like stubborn because it's such a underdog album and not a lot of people talk about Rock or Bust. And then when I see this one getting all the attention, maybe I'm fooling myself. But I still think, well, let's put it this way. Rock or Bust and this album are the best thing they've done since Ball Breaker for me,
Sure.
And no, I really love it, and I like it more than Fly. I like it more than Blow Up Your Video and obviously Razor's Edge. And I just think it's a great return to form. And, like Will said, it was so needed at this time. We're all in lockdown and wow, new AC/DC and it was just fun. And then, look, and I'm one of these guys that was praising Axel DC because when I saw that show, it just fucking blew my mind. And then when I heard Brian was back, I was like, fuck yeah, cool. That's where Brian belongs. But I am a little bummed that AC/DC didn't release a live album with Axel because that shit was awesome. All those deep tracks they threw out, and that's something we didn't talk about. Axel was in the band for a little while, and I remember how people were coming down on them for it. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of people that work for AC/DC, road crew. Will would know this, there's a lot of people out of work because Brian Johnson, he had hearing problems. So, I heard people calling Angus a sellout. Angus, of all people, a sellout. Angus Young. I'm sorry. In the history of music, period, nobody works harder on stage than Angus Young.
Yeah.
And that guy busted his ass for so many. If there's anybody that deserves the squillion dollars in the music business, it's Angus fucking Young. Because that guy busts his ass. And when I saw that Rock or Bust tour, just like every other tour before it, Angus, what the hell is that guy on? The guy doesn't stop. At his age today, he still does the same shit he did back then.
Yep.
Like stumbles on the floor and doesn't stop moving his legs and doing the hop across the stage. The guy's an animal and he still does it. This is a guy that doesn't need to prove himself anymore. But you can tell while watching, I was very close to the Rock and Bus show. And I was like, my God, look at the energy on this little guy. It just doesn't stop. And he doesn't have to do this. But it's because the music lives through him. He lives it. He's the real deal. He's Lemmy in shorts in a schoolboy uniform, He's the shit, dude. Angus Young is not a fucking sellout. You're a fucking idiot if you think Angus Young's a sellout. AC/DC, period, being a sellout. They never did a new metal song. They never did a hair metal song. They never did all this shit they've always been bluesy rock and roll. Yeah, they took a couple turns here and there, but they still kept it with the AC/DC vibe and integrity. And by them getting Axel in the band, I saw it more as, dude, we got a lot of people that depend on this tour, light crew, all this shit. The tour has to go on, So
Totally.
that's why they did it. And look, for them to bring Brian back proves that Angus ain't no sellout. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And I totally welcome Brian coming back. Honestly, I did say this, and I know it's a unpopular opinion, but man, the best time I ever saw with AC/DC was the Axl Rose one. Not because of Axl Rose, even though he nailed it, but the fucking set list was so very Bond heavy, very like like you had Given the Dog a Bone. It's shit that Brian and the band doesn't do. So it was a much welcome. It was just a phenomenal show. That's all I can say. But I'm not bummed. I'm not bummed that Brian's back because Brian is such a great fucking guy. And, he is like, dude, he replaced Bond, which is not easy to do, and he replaced him by doing the most sold hard rock album in the history of fucking music. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, I'm all for Brian being back. I wasn't bummed when I first heard it. I know a lot of people that agree with me. Wow, man, I want Axl. I was like, no, man, shut up. It's Brian Johnson, man. Come on. The guy's been fucking dedicated to AC/DC since 1980. So.
Yeah, and he brought the goods. I think that's the thing. Like, it's great. It's like him and Phil coming back. It's to me, when I listen to Power Up, it sounds like there is a fire under their ass. It sounded like Phil and Brian were both grateful to be back in the band. They weren't sure that this was going to happen. No one was. And it just feels like everyone's just like really putting their A game on this album to do Malcolm, to honor Malcolm, but also because they realize this might be the last time. And let's go out with a really strong album. Like, that's the vibe I got on it. I thought Brian's vocals were amazing on it. Some of his best he's done in a long, long time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. Now that we're done, we'll do a little recap on AC/DC before we leave, but Will, I'm going to ask you a favor.
Yes.
You said the funniest fucking story ever that I've ever heard you say when we did that podcast Belongs to Them, King Diamond podcast. I would like for you to tell the listeners the story of when you were in the amusement park with the water. You remember that?
Yeah.
Please tell that story because it's so funny.
It was in Orlando, Florida, at the big water park down there, whatever it's called. And I was on tour with one of my old bands, the Cutthroats 9. We had a couple days off in Orlando, and we went to this water park, and we're having fun and shit. And there's this thing called a lazy river, and it's like a slow-moving river that goes around the whole diameter of the park, pretty much. And it has like these little jets that push the water along, and there's inner tubes. You're supposed to sit in the inner tube and just kind of lazily go around the park. It's a fun thing. It's like a lot of old people and shit. But on the last pass, like right when you go around the corner and before you go into like a little like overpass, and then right there is where everyone's standing in line. There's a whole group of people. So right before that last corner, I turned to my bandmates and I was like, "Hey, watch this, man. I'm gonna pretend I drowned." So I laid face down in the water. It was floating slowly, and my friends got out of the river because they wanted to see what it looked like from the other people's perspective. And they said that you just saw this big guy floating face down, like coming underneath the underpass. And when I was I was partially under the water. I can hear kids screaming like, I caused a huge commotion, and the next thing I know, I was getting pulled out of the lake, out of the river, and I got thrown out of the park.
That fucking rules. I love that story, man.
You're like the baby. You were like the baby Ruth in Caddyshack.
Totally, I was a giant baby. Yeah. My bandmates said it looked hilarious. It was like you just saw this dude coming out. First, there was an inner tube, then a big dude floating face down in the
water.
Very
That's
fun.
why I want to hang out with Will at a water park. That would be a blast. Well, guys, any closing statements on AC/DC? I'll go first. The last two albums are my favorite since Flick of the Switch, really, and everything in between. Other than Razor's Edge, I really don't have a problem with any of them, really. Razor's Edge pisses me off. And that's what I think. What do you think, Edwin?
I'll say the same thing, but even Razor's Edge, even though it's my least favorite AC/DC album and I almost never listen to it, it's still better than like a Poison album, or a Bon Jovi album, or Warrant and a lot of shitty bands from that period. So if that's your worst album, that says something for you as a band. And what we all say is like their worst album. Obviously, it was a big hit and a big comeback for them. But there's definitely worst albums to have, but yeah, that's my least favorite. But I think they're one of the most consistent bands ever. Just what they did in the 70s and 80s alone, to me, makes it like, if they just want to put out an album every 5 years, which they do, and if it's just a solid rock and roll record, then they earned that. Like you said, Ralph, that, Angus deserves all the money he has. These guys worked so hard just from like 74 to 85, I mean, into even the late 80s. They were just constantly touring and putting out albums of such a high quality that they are, I mean, for my generation anyway, I think they're like the Rolling Stones, for us. They're fucking AC/DC. They're one of the greatest hard rock, at times /metal, depending on the year, bands ever. And I love them, and they're up there. It's like AC/DC and Motorhead are kind of like tied for my favorite band. But I go back even farther with AC/DC. So my roots are very deep with them. They are one of the greatest bands of all time. And if you don't love AC/DC, I don't know. I think there's something fucked up about you.
Yeah, I know quite a few people that hate AC/DC, actually.
Yeah, I think it's just like you want to rain on your own parade of life.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Edwin, since you're such a huge AC/DC fan. I don't know if this is true or not, and I don't know if you know this, but I saw a picture once of Angus Young's mansion. Have you ever seen this?
No, in Sydney. I know it's located in Sydney, but I've never seen pictures.
I don't know if this is real or not, but somebody took pictures of his house, and on the top, it's like this huge house, and on the top, there's like embedded in on the roof are like concrete heads with little horns on it that look kind of like Highway to Hell Angus.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, it probably is. I don't know. I never actually looked at this house. I've visited. I've driven past. This is going to sound a little stalker, like I'm a stalker. But I don't know. Have you ever done this, Ralph? Did you ever drive past Brian's house in Sarasota?
No, Sarasota is very far from me.
See, it's close to me. I live in Tampa. I bounce between LA and Tampa, but I'm currently in Tampa. I got a condo in Tampa, and that's like an hour. Sarasota is an hour away, and I couldn't resist. Does this sound creepy? Like I was just curious. So
yeah, it's creepy, but who cares?
It's fucking Brian Johnson. He's one of my favorite people. So I went to visit Sarasota too. We went in for the lunch and stuff that day, so it wasn't like we were just going to do that, but we were there, and we were like, Stephen King doesn't live too far from there either.
Doesn't Cliff Williams live around there?
He doesn't. I don't think he lives in Sarasota, but he doesn't live far. He does live around there, and yeah, they do hang like Cliff and Brian. It's interesting because Cliff was best friends with Bon, and then he became best friends with Brian, and probably because he's a little older. Like both Brian and Bon and Cliff, those three guys were a little older than the other three guys. So Cliff bonded with Bond, and then he bonded with Brian, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, so Cliff lives there. I don't know if he lives in Sarasota exactly. I think I looked into it once. But yeah, Brian's house, it's interesting because Brian's house, it's a nice home, but it's like next to, it's like not like secluded. And it says something, it's kind of like fits Brian's personality. Like he's such an affable kind of guy. Like he's like it's a big, nice house and it's on the water. Like, yeah, he's rich. But it's like next to other homes that are like really close to it. Like he's part of a community. He's not like isolated. And I think that says something. From what I've heard people say, like Brian strolls into local bars and stuff. And he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy who comes in and is like, hey, laddie, and you can buy him a drink. And he's just always had that vibe. And he's like the real deal. He's just a real straight up guy. And that's one of the reasons why I think it worked with him. It wasn't like it's like, people annoy me sometimes when they say like, oh, AC/DC should have broke up after Bond. And it's just like, well, you're not being like the Young brothers are just in their 20s at that point. Like, yeah, they're going to give up like in their 20s. Like you don't want to hear Angus and Malcolm continue to make music. I mean, it's not like Van Halen where the singer's still alive. Like they had a choice, as tragic as it is. Bond was dead. They couldn't continue with Bond. There was no choice. So you don't want them to get some cool dude from Newcastle that has a flat cap, that has a great voice, that Bon Scott himself liked and had a few drinks with, on tour with together. Like, you don't want them to continue with a guy like Brian. Then again, it's like people that want to rain on their own parade. It's like fucking Bon Scott wouldn't agree with you. Bon Scott would be like, yeah, fuck. He would love Back in Black in those albums. I believe that from everything I know about Bon. He would have loved Brian with the band and he would have gave them a thumbs up. And Brian's that kind of dude. And just when I drove past where he lived, it kind of confirmed that. It's like Brian's not like a secluded dude. He's a cool, approachable guy. Lemmy was like that too in his own way, you know, living right outside the rainbow, you know. He's the real deal, and I love that guy. I think he's an awesome dude.
Yeah, I do too. Will, do you have any closing statements?
I too saw Brian Johnson's house, and when I was going through his trash, I'm just kidding. Actually, my closing statement's kind of shameless self-promotion, but it's AC/DC related.
Yes.
I'm in a AC/DC tribute band with Zetro from Exodus, and it's called ACDZ for Zetro. And we're going to be doing a live stream in March, I believe.
Oh,
and it's going to be, and we do just Bon Scott era songs, so we won't be playing any of the songs we talked about on these last two shows. But it's a lot of fun, and when I started playing with these guys and doing these AC/DC songs, I had a whole new appreciation for Phil Rudd for one, and just for the music in general. I mean, I've always been a fan, but once you play them and realize all of the little nuances and the intricacies of the little details of the songs, you know, they're doing a lot more than, you know, a regular person might hear, you know. So yeah, I love them, and they're fun songs to play, and AC/DC forever, man.
Right on, man. So yeah, I look forward to that one. You know, Will, this sucks, man. I got so distracted during Christmas that I totally forgot about the Death Angel thing, and I even paid for it. I paid for it and didn't get to see it.
Damn.
That sucks. And then, like my friend Ron told me, he goes, "No, it's still up. They left it up for, you know, after the show." I go, "Oh, cool." So I went to go look at it, and it was like, "No, it's not." He goes, "Well, it was up yesterday." I was like, "Son of a bitch!" It was like 4 days later. I went to go look at it.
I think it was up for 72 hours. So you just missed it.
Yeah, and I paid for it. God damn it! I felt gypped, but whatever.
Bummer, man. Bummer. Yeah.
But I will not miss this ACD. I mean, plug it. Remind me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll do some promo stuff on your Almost Human page, and I'll make sure you know about it.
Right on, because I definitely do want to see it, and I already have seen footage. Because when you talked about it on that other episode, I looked at some footage. Even though it was recorded in the audience, it sounded great.
Cool, man.
And I think Riff Raff you guys played, I saw, that was really good.
You do a lot of Power stuff?
Oh, yeah, dude. I think that's collectively everyone's favorite album, favorite Bon album in the band. So, yeah, we do, Give Me a Bullet, Riff Raff. Actually, we do almost everything except Sin City. I don't think we've ever done Sin City.
Wow.
I mean, Zetro just likes to keep it really, really like
obscure.
Tracks. Totally,
that would be the most known song from Power. It's my favorite AC/DC song, but it's
a great song too.
But it's cool that you do every other song.
Oh, pretty much, man. Like Kicked in the Teeth. Like sometimes we'll do Riff Raff and Kicked in the Teeth back to back. That's fucking hard on my fucking riff, man.
Have you guys ever played Get It Hot?
Yeah. Oh no, I don't think. See, that's a funny thing about Highway to Hell. We kind of ignore that album a little bit because Zetro thinks it's too popular. Like he really wants to keep it like the deep tracks all the time. So I think we always do Walk All Over You for sure, and that's about it, man.
Get It Hot, even for a popular album, that's a deep track.
Yeah, it is a deep track.
I love that.
It's also freaking easy, man. It's only like 2.5 minutes long, and it's one of the easier AC/DC songs. I love that song.
Love it. They played.
We also do If You Want Blood. We do If You Want Blood. I have a funny story about that, real quick. We had this chick playing with us for a little while, doing the Malcolm role, and she's also in another AC/DC tribute band, so she knows how to play AC/DC songs, but for some reason she couldn't play If You Want Blood. It was just she couldn't do it. I couldn't understand it. Like even when we started the song off, she couldn't like make ends meet. Like like the song starts, we all hit the first note together, da, 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 and then you keep carrying on with the riff. But like everyone does the accent at the beginning, da, 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 and it couldn't. There was like a mental block or something. So we would go da, and there'd be no riff, and I'd look at her like, come on, and then she'd go da 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 da, and so we just would go over that one little thing at practice over and over again. And then we finally played a show with her at Slim's, and that's where Death Angel usually does their Christmas shows. So it's a good club, and it was a Saturday night. It was a big show for us, and she did it again, man. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, da, da,
Maybe,
da, da,
maybe
da,
it-
da.
you-
It made no sense, dude. I couldn't. She got fired.
maybe this might sound sexist, but maybe you have to be a man to play that song, right?
I don't know, man. I wanted to cover her in oil, man.
I'd light her up. Shot down in flames. Yeah. Maybe she could have got it right if the guy that played Angus did the first bang. You know what I mean? Maybe that bang, the dan threw her off. Maybe she shouldn't have done the bang. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Well, the funny thing is that he had to save the day. We all went dan, and there was dead silence, and then he carried the riff. Dan, 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 even though that's not his job, that's Malcolm's part,
Right.
But yeah.
Wow, that's wild. And what date is that again? Tell the people what date.
There's no set date yet, but I think it's going to
Okay.
be in March. So
Right
I'll
on.
definitely let you know.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to see that.
And check out the recent Zetro's Vault. Will is on there.
Yep.
Cool,
We're
definitely.
just shooting the shit for an hour, answering questions.
Yeah, it was really good, really entertaining. I loved when you guys got into the mentors.
Oh, dude, I've got a million El Duce stories.
Yeah, maybe we should do a mentors episode, man.
I'm down, dude. I'm down. I mean, I told that one joke on Zetro's show that I'm going to tell again.
Yeah.
I saw them once on Haight Street. They play at this club called the Night Break, and there's some fans in the crowd wearing Mentors hoods, black hoods, and El Duce goes, "Yeah, you see those guys in the crowd with the black hoods? They're the real Mentors fans. If you wear a black hood to a Mentors show, you get in for half price. And if you wear a white one, you get in for free."
I'll tell you, I got Mentors played down here in '96, and I go into the club, and I shit you not, the first thing I see when I walk into the club is El Duce passed out under a pool table, and I said, "Is this guy playing tonight?" And what happened was they had one of the roadies play the drums while these two chicks were holding him up, and it's on YouTube, the whole show. There's this naked chick, hot chick, like leaning. You see me all the way up front, and she's like leaning on me, going, "Get Duce a beer." So get the fuck off me, man. I don't care how hot you are. Give me a blowjob, and I'll get Duce a beer. But anyway, so then after the show, I bought their CD to the max, and Duce's at the bar talking to, because this is actually you played there, Will. It was at Churchill's. Which is
I remember that. I know Churchill's.
Yeah, it's a little Haiti. It's a bad neighborhood. It's like, the slums of Miami. Well, he was with a crack whore at the end of the show at a bar with a crack whore, and I wanted El Duce to sign my CD. So I go up to El Duce, I go, "Duce, can you sign this?" And he goes, "Can't you see I'm talking to a lady here?" That's my Duce story. I saw the Mentors like 2 years ago, and they were so bad. Dr. Heathen sings all the songs now. And
oh, really?
Yeah, they're still going. But Sticky Wife Beater, man, that guy's hilarious. That guy, I think he took over El Duce's spot because he was shit-faced beyond belief after that show. But yeah, the Mentors, man. Yeah, I like to dig into and hear all because you live in California, so I'm sure you saw the Mentors more than a few times.
Oh, dude, I saw the Mentors. I saw the Mentors open for Violence at the Stone.
Shit.
That was a wild show. Oh yeah, man.
Imagine.
But yeah, I've seen them. When they were like in the early '90s, they were kind of in their prime. like as far as touring and putting out albums. And so they were coming to the Bay Area, to San Francisco, like 4 times a year, it seemed like. So I saw them between like 1991 and 94. I saw them like 4 or 5 times a year. So I've seen them a lot, and I've been around El Duce quite a bit. So I could definitely fill up an hour of El Duce stories.
Yeah, we'll plan that in the future after we do the Who, because we still got to do the Who.
Oh,
my
dude.
God, you guys go do the Who. Wow.
Dude, I just picked up some Who bootlegs. Holy shit,
yeah?
man. Yeah, dude.
What era?
I got 2 from Quadrophenia tour.
Nice.
One of them, one's live in New York. The other one's, excuse me. Yeah, I got 2 Quadrophenia ones. One's live in New York, and I forget where the other one is. And then I got a Who by Numbers tour one, which is live at the Cow Palace in San Francisco.
I love that album.
And, whoa, really?
Oh, you don't like that? That album's awesome.
Who by Numbers?
Yeah. Slip Kid. Oh my God, I love that album.
It's kind of subtle. I like it. I
think it's very underrated, actually.
Yeah,
there's a few songs like I love Success Story, and Slip Kid's cool, and I like Squeezebox a lot.
Squeezebox is awesome.
There's some really depressing ballady type of songs on side 2. After I get the album kind of tapers off for me. That's actually my least favorite Who album, I would say.
Really?
Like even some of the later ones you like better?
Yeah, I love It's Hard. I think that's a great album. Okay, I'll say I like Who by Numbers more than Face Dances. I'll definitely say that. But,
I love Face Dances. Though I will say I like Who by Numbers. I love however much I booze. I love that song. And Imagine a Man. Go ahead. Imagine a Man is awesome. I love that album, man.
Side 1 is solid, but I mean, some of the ballads on side 2 is like 2 or 3 in a row. Like it starts.
It does taper off. It's not like my favorite Who album, but I just think it's very underrated. It's very under the radar. Not a lot of people talk about that album.
Definitely. But the bootleg for that tour is great, man. I mean, Keith Moon is still playing really well. Like maybe not quite as good as a few years earlier, but that's like I've read that was the last tour that was his last tour. So, but he kind of, according to Pete Townsend, he was starting to lose it during the Quadrophenia tour, and then he said he bounced back really hard for Who by Numbers tour. Like he played really well, and he's playing great on the bootleg. But yeah, now we're getting on a whole Who tangent.
We'll save the rest for the future episode that me and we'll tackle the Who discography, which is awesome because the Who doesn't have that many albums.
Totally.
Isn't that crazy? They've been around since the 60s and they don't really have many albums.
Yeah, like once they hit the 70s, they started putting out albums every 3-4 years.
And,
they slowed down.
Very cool. But dudes, thank you so much. This has been a great episode. Two great episodes of the AC/DC Brian stuff. So we covered all AC/DC on the Vieira Vault. And Edwin, thank you so much. Give a plug to your YouTube page, bro.
Yeah, if you want to check out Edwin Cannistraci, out there, if you want to plug me, I do reviews for AC/DC. I did a discography review. I did the Power Up review. I did just a Shot in the Dark, but I do a lot of other stuff, mainly hard rock and heavy metal. But occasionally I do like to throw a curveball because I do like other kinds of music too. Like I do like some R&B and funk, a little outlaw country. I'll do some different shit from time to time, a little jazz. I haven't done yet, but I plan to one of these days. But mainly it's hard rock and like classic rock and heavy metal for the most part. Did a Motorhead one, was the first one I did, where I reviewed every Motorhead album.
Favorite Motorhead album?
My favorite?
Yeah.
It's Overkill. It got to go with Overkill.
Same here. Yeah. What's yours, Will?
Orgasmatron.
Love that album.
Awesome album.
Very
awesome
underrated. A lot of people talk bad about Orgasmatron, actually. Yeah, because, rock and roll is such a great album. And people are like, everybody talks about Orgasmatron. Rock and roll is much better. I was like, I love rock and roll. Don't get me wrong, but fucking The Claw, man. No, I love Orgasmatron.
Mean Machine.
Mean Machine. Yeah. Built for Speed.
Death Forever.
Yeah.
I love rock and roll, but I think Orgasmatron's better. Yeah. I really love Another Perfect Day. I think that's a really great
that one's totally good. That one's very respected though, which is cool.
I love until you get to like March or Die. I love every Motorhead album.
Yeah, I don't like March or Die.
Yeah, that's
my least favorite one.
That's my least favorite too. That's the Razor's Edge. It's better than Razor's Edge. Man.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say that the Motorhead ever sold out, but that album's pretty close to selling out, man.
It's close. It's close.
You can tell because they were on a big label with 1916, and they're like, "All right, guys, you better make this one even bigger," you know?
Yeah. Well, and Sharon Osbourne was managing Lemmy at that time. That's why he was like writing hit songs for Ozzy Osbourne too at the same time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's for 2 albums, and then he was like, "Fuck off, Sharon," and started making awesome albums again.
Right on. Well, Will, anything you want to plug?
No, just look out for details on the AC/DC live stream, and Death Angel's working on new stuff, and we hope to be in the studio by the end of summer. And
your radio show. Your radio
What's
show.
that? Oh yeah, my
show.
radio show. What the fuck? I'm terrible. Listen to my show. It's called The Full Metal Jacket, FOOL. And it's on this thing called Gimme Metal, which is a 24-hour heavy metal radio station. It's free. You just download the app to your phone or tablet or computer or whatever, and it's 24 hours. Dave Mustaine has a show. Randy Blythe has a show. Ross the Boss. And I have a show. It's every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's free. So download the app, you cheap bastards.
Yeah, it's free. All right, guys. Thanks again, man. This has been a great episode, and I appreciate you both being on the Vieira Vault.
Hey, man, my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. It was great. Great talking to both of you, Will and Ralph. Awesome.
Totally, man.
So this brings an end to the whole AC/DC discography here on the Vieira Vault. Want to thank Will and Edwin, man. It's a great time, man. Awesome. And Will will be back. Hopefully it'll be the next episode where we talk about The Who. Anyway, you know what time it is. Follow me into the Vieira Vault. This week in the Vieira Vault, I'm going to play some AC/DC with Axl Rose. I wanted them to release at least a live album, and it's hard to find anything that sounds good from this tour. I wish I could have found a better version of something like Rock and Roll Damnation or Giving the Dog a Bone or something like that. But the only thing that I have that sounds somewhat professional is the opening track of Rock or Bust, which is how they open the show. So this is AC/DC with Axl Rose doing Rock or Bust. was AC/DC with Axl Rose live in Lisbon. Is that how you pronounce it? In 2016 with Rock or Bust. All right, everybody. So thank you for listening. And starting next week, I hope I remember this. I'm going to start reading some of your guys' comments. Leave an iTunes review, and I'll read that. I haven't checked my iTunes, so maybe there is something new there. So I'll go check. But, on the YouTube page, on the Facebook page, leave your comment of what you think of, the latest episodes. Because I'm not going to go, I'm going to do each week, I'm going to do the episode before talking about, the comments on, like the next episode, I'll talk about the AC/DC episode's comments. And if you left something on iTunes, I don't care what episode that is, I'll talk about it. Anyway, thank you all, especially you listening now. You all rule. Stay frosty and schmack 'em a gob.